how did both support groups start and develop further? So Claudia, how did you touched a little bit earlier on the first steps, but can you tell us more about how the group developed, perhaps, in Oxford?
Yes, I would say the numbers have stayed fairly stable in terms of how many members or partners, friends come along to each meeting. There are some people who've been coming for a very long time. There are generally most meetings we have some newly diagnosed patients, and it's really encouraging to see people grow in confidence to talk about the issues that they're facing in their everyday life as a result of the diagnosis, and to be able to sort of be living proof to the newly diagnosed members that there is life within MDS. Obviously we're all dealing with different aspects of it, but generally speaking there's some points where different patients meet in terms of what they're going through, and that's particularly true with some of the people who've gone for transplant, and we have some very successful transplant patients who still maintain their links with the group and come along to meetings, and it's really good to see people who come into the group and have been having that conversation with their clinician about whether this might be an option for them, to be able to talk on a one-to-one basis with somebody who knows exactly what it's like to have a transplant in that centre. And likewise with people who come a little bit reluctantly maybe, or a little bit apprehensively I should say, you can see them visibly relax when they realise that they're in a comfortable situation where there's no pressure on them to say more than they feel ready to at that time. And as they come to more and more meetings, they generally are more and more willing to share information with others because they feel comfortable, they recognise people from previous meetings and so on. I must say that the fact that we meet in the Maggie's Centre in Oxford is a wonderful bonus because it's on the campus where the haematology and cancer department is, but you wouldn't think you were in a hospital when you're actually sitting there in the meeting room. It's like a tree house. And so the environment in which you're sitting really helps you to feel at ease, and that you're not discussing a clinical matter, you are discussing just a normal, everyday human condition. And the staff are wonderful and welcoming, and you can visibly see people, you can see the tension easing away from them. And some people who at the beginning of a meeting maybe are quite limited in what they want to offer in terms of personal information, by the end, when we've all had a laugh together, which I think is very therapeutic, and occasionally a few tears, which also in its own way is therapeutic, are willing to really go into quite a lot of detail and to sit back in the chair and really make themselves at home. We do have clinical members of the clinical team who come in to talk to us from time to time. That always brings out a bumper attendance. But I have to say that other meetings are equally as valuable where you are sharing on a one-to-one basis, or you have input maybe from an expert in fatigue management or nutrition. We had a wonderful meeting with a member of the pastoral team there, and people really opened up to her and shared a lot more than they had done at other meetings. The chaplaincy team, that was the word I was searching for, which wouldn't come. So I think the group is almost cyclical, if you like, because people don't necessarily come for years on end. They come when they feel the need, and we can repeat certain topics that would be of help to them.
Chris, same question to you. There must be some things that resonate for you as well. What do you see in the Essex region? How do the patients respond, or the caregivers as well, the spouses of or children of patients? How do they?
Well, I think as Claudia says, when people first come in, they're quite apprehensive, as anybody would be in going to any kind of a new group with new people. But sometimes what happens is that there has been developing a core of people. I sometimes call them our old members, but then they say, oh, our longer attending members. And because they come quite regularly and they form that core, people recognise the same faces each time. So even if you do get new people, there's that core of people that know each other and have heard what their issues are with MDS. So I think, as Claudia says, what happens is that people come in sort of quite apprehensive, but you see from meeting to meeting changes in people. I can think of one man came in and his wife came up to me and said he is so anxious about this. He just cannot function because he's just worrying about it all the time. Well, I think he's been to 4 meetings now. It's a different man that walks in, smiling, talking about his hobbies, what he's getting up to. And I think that's partly, it's partly a process. That doesn't happen straight away. I mean, certainly with my own MDS, it is a process. It takes time for you to get to that position of living with the disease rather than just worrying about it all the time. And I think that's what you sort of see in the support group, this gradual change in people. And I think that helps. And there is humour there. And I think the more people get to know each other, I mean, I lead the meetings and, I make sort of quite a few jokes and people just warm to it, because yes, there's nothing funny about the situation that we're being in, but people can see humorous aspects to it. And we've even discussed things like, so are there any benefits to MDS? And people have found, lots of benefits. Exploring how it's meant that their family have become closer and they've become more valued, and they're enjoying life more because it's become more valuable to them. So, we do touch on things like that. But something I was going to say again about sort of setting up groups, I think something that's important is the logistics of it all. You've got to, Oxford are very lucky because they have this centre. We've had to move around to different venues. They haven't all been ideal, but geographically I've tried. Essex is a very big county. I think it might be one of the biggest counties in terms of miles travelled between north and south. But you can't expect people who are struggling with an illness to travel for much more than an hour without it having an effect on them. So finding somewhere central, finding somewhere that's comfortable and doesn't feel like a hospital, I think that's important. What about the days, are there any of the members that are still working and can't come in the day, or people who work part-time and can't come on Tuesdays unless there's an hour in the month or something? And the logistics of it all is quite challenging because obviously there will be people having treatments, there will be people having azacitidine 7 days in every 28. You may have several people in your group and they won't all be on the same cycle. There'll be people who are having blood transfusions or clinical appointments which they clearly don't want to miss. So, finding a day when the optimum number of people there, that's quite a challenge in itself. So, there are quite a lot of factors involved in trying to get a group going, keeping it going, and keeping people sort of coming back for as long as they feel they need to. And as Claudia said, for some people it may just be enough to go once or twice, just to know there's other people out there suffering the same issues. For other people, they do like to touch base a lot more often.
Mm-hmm.